identification, a lot about format validation, and then about fixing PDFs. And of course, if you're fixing PDFs, you have two versions, the original and the fixed one, and they should look alike, but they sometimes don't. And that's part of the quality check I want to introduce now. Then I was on the, I was seeking a PDFA 2A because I have never seen one. But during the PDF days this year in Cologne, I ran into a guy and he actually introduced me to my first PDFA 2A. And of course, I will show it to you as well. And then I will lose some words about planned activities. Usually it's easy to recognize a PDF because a PDF always starts in the same way. You always have this percent thing, then PDF, and then the version. Nevertheless, sometimes some tools are not really sure which PDF it is. I was under the impression that this is due to some inconsistencies between the PDF header and the PDF metadata. And I'm really sure I had PDF examples about this topic, but I couldn't find them anymore. So if anybody has a PDF like this, they can always send them to me. I'm always collecting interesting errors on PDF files. I couldn't reproduce this problem as well as I learned like an hour ago, so this slide is still here because maybe some people have run into that problem as well, and then we can maybe talk to each other later. If I use FITS, which is using more than one tool, sometimes there for format identifications uncertainties as well. They don't really know which version it is, and then you have always to look at the PDF manually because the automatic workflow will just stop. We are using FITS only in pre-ingest, not in our currently used archiving system. So this is something we usually don't run into. But of course, our archiving system uses several tools as well, as for example, JHOVE, Droid, and Fido. And if there are inconsistencies, we run into problems as well. As I have already mentioned, I attended the PDF days in Cologne this year, and there was some guy from PDF tools talking about inconsistencies with PDF files as well. When they convert PDF files into PDFA files, which they usually want to do with every PDF file they get because it's their job and they earn money with it, they usually run into inconsistencies between the XMP metadata and the info dictionary. And I liked that because he had a table and he told us, okay, you have to decide what you do. If there is a value present somewhere and in the XMP metadata there's the value not present, or if there are two values present but they are not alike. The definition of the info dictionary. Maybe we have written something on the OPF side on this. Jody, can I come back to your question because I'm pretty sure I have written something about that, but I have to look for it, and maybe that would last too long now. But I think we have something on the OPF page. Just come back to me. I won't forget it. Okay, so there's a table. You just have to decide. And you have to decide and make this decision transparent for your clients. And maybe this is a good workflow for my PDF fixing as well in archiving. Sometimes I just have to make a decision. If the PDF header says it's 1.4 and the XMP metadata says something else, I have to decide, of course, because it can't be both. And then I have to put it somewhere and say, okay, I think the PDF header is more more important, or the XMP metadata is more important, just decide and stick to it and have it in your policy. That's a really nice way to handle this kind of problem. Today I received an email. I think the PDF Days presentations are online now, so everybody should have access to it. Maybe it would be nice to listen to some of the presentations, because some were really nice. So, format validation, which is a big issue for PDF files. Me personally, I have run into like 60 JHOVE error messages, but I know there are more, following some of my favorites. Sometimes there's no PDF header. For example, I have a PDF file which looks from the outside like a PDF file, has a PDF extension and everything, but if I open it with a PDF viewer, no matter which one, it just can't be opened. When I open it with Notepad or some other editor, I see that it's actually not a PDF file, but an XML file. And looking into it, I didn't realize that, but I asked Bruno Lovaghi, who really is a PDF expert, and he told me that some user opened a website and wanted to download the PDF, but he didn't realize that the page and the PDF wasn't there anymore, and saved it as a PDF. And well, he just saved the error message, which was in the XML format. Ah, thank you, Carl. That's convenient. This PDF, of course, is too broken to archive because it's not there. I don't have it. Of course, I can archive the PDF, which isn't really a PDF with the error message, for transparency reasons or something like this. But so I can't do anything. In this, well, if it's not there, I can't archive it. That's clear, and I don't have any way to repair it. The only possible way, maybe, would be to go back to the web page and ask for the original PDF, if they are reachable, if they have it. But if they don't, well, I can't do anything. The other this problem actually is very often in my daily work, because the PDF is there, at least the beginning, and it ends before it should end. There is no end of file tag, which usually is at the end of every PDF. And the tools, of course, realize that, JHOVE as well, which is really useful, because mostly the reason is that the user has stopped the upload for some reason, or maybe the computer crashed or something happened and the PDF was not complete. But in this case, in most of the cases, we have the possibility to go back to the original path and then do it again and get to the PDF, which is then complete. But of course, somebody has to do it who can contact the data producer. Maybe it's not me who can do it, but my colleague, but we can somehow solve it. Because without the rest of the PDF file, of course, the PDF is not complete and can't be archived. And you see an URL on this slide, because we have some, for some JHOVE error messages, we already have example PDFs. We are collecting, and we don't have enough example PDFs yet, which is mainly due to the fact that we can't use the PDF of our data producers as a bad example so easily, because they would be mad at us, of course. So usually we have to ask, or we have to reproduce the error somehow. But at least for this example, I have a PDF example on the OPF homepage. And of course, if you have examples of some JHOVE error messages which can be published, we are always thankful to get them. That would be really nice. So these two JHOVE error messages are perhaps easy to understand and not easy to fix. Usually, JOVE errors are not easy to understand, at least I am under the impression. Even looking, okay, I guess, can I do that? No, I can do that, but I have to do it later. Copy the URL was the question. So, yes, you can have access to the slides later. And then in the PPT format, I guess you can copy and paste and copy URLs easily. So, usually JOVE errors are very impossible to understand, at least for normal people. For me, it's not easy. We have begun to describe the JOVE errors we have already run into and put it on the OPF site and looked at the source code, tried to find examples. But I see this is not really in focus, but I am very sure in the usual PowerPoint presentation, this screenshot is more in focus. That's really bad because I have some more screenshots and I hope they will be easier to read. Maybe it's only because it's red. So this is really, it's all not well formed and the error messages are listed there. I hope it's easier to see later on. But these JOVE errors are most of the time pretty easy to fix. I come into that in a couple of slides. We try to understand the JOVE error messages better. I have here the link to the OPF page where we collect all the error messages and we try to explain, does this error lead to malformedness or invalidation or both? Is there some basic PDF knowledge? I think the info dictionary is explained there too. We will check later. If it's not explained yet, I guess we should add it. And there's the list of JOVE errors. If we can, if we have an explanation, we will add it there. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we know what the impact is, and we even know what the cure is, but sometimes we don't. But we started a few weeks ago, so it's pretty fresh still, and it's very likely to grow in the near future. And you can always check it out. It's openly available. The site is under construction, but it's growing. I have checked the PDFBox as well, which is only a PDF validator for PDFA, and this is really even more wordy. JOVE is pretty wordy already, but compared to PDFBox, it's relatively silent because you see, I have here a sample of not even 700 invalid PDFA files, and they have almost 1,000 different error messages and like more than 200,000 errors because one error can occur more than once. And I have looked into it and to find out which errors are the most common, at least in my little sample, and most are about graphics and fonts. Of course, this is partly due to the PDF documents I have to archive because it's mostly just journal articles, essays, working papers. They contain mostly text. So of course the biggest problems are the fonts and the embedded graphics and statistics as well. I think it's possible if you have another sample with a completely other focus of PDF files, you might come to a different finding, but well, this is at least true for the PDF files I have to archive. Currently, we are fixing PDF files the shallow way. I really, well, I try to say how we do that. We really take the PDF, which is malformed, and copy it side by side into a new PDF. And we're using the iText library for this. I have even copied a little bit source code in there to see you how easy it is. And we look into it if there's some XMP metadata and copy it as well into the new PDF. And that's it. So we don't really fix it. We just copy it into a new PDF. And this always works as long as the PDF is not password protected, because iText won't edit any PDF which is password protected, at least not the library I'm using. The output PDF always looks fine. It looks exactly like the original file. You can't tell the difference just by looking at it, and it's always well-formed and valid. If you can open the PDF still in some PDF viewer, this shallow program is able to read it. But the suspicion is, well, the issues might still be there. JHOVE just can't find them anymore. I don't really know. I can answer the question Sheila just put. She's asking how we test that the output PDF looks like the original PDF. We have an automatic test as well, which I will introduce, I think, in 2 slides. And of course, we look visually as well. But we have some automation already, which is working at least for characters. It wouldn't realize if something is not green anymore but red, but it would realize if some characters, if the text has changed. So this is the very shallow way. We are doing this right now. Of course, we always keep the original as well, but we are not confident that this solution is really good. But the alternative, fixing the JHOVE issues, so fixing the PDFs thoroughly with a decent tool like Colors, PDF tools, something which is able to convert to PDF-A, has other problems. Our PDFs are just too broken to be migrated to PDF-A in most of the times. And if they can be migrated to PDF-A, they just look different. I have some examples during the next slides, but in most of the cases, I wouldn't think that the data producer would be satisfied with a PDF-A conversion, which really is too bad, because this would be the better way to fix the PDF files, in my opinion. But it's just changing too much, and it's not really able to handle our PDFs, because they are just too bad, maybe. But still, these are our PDFs. If you don't have the original data, maybe the original Microsoft Word file to fix the issues there, so we can't do anything. That's just too bad. So I come to the next question. We have developed a quality checker which runs automatically. Sheila just asked about it. I called it the twin tester tool, and it really checks only the characters. I tried to explain it in a very easy way. Here you see the original PDF with 3 sentences and the altered PDF with 3 sentences. And you see that there are some differences between the two PDFs. Some words are just different. And then I take the tool, and the tool just extracts every line in the original PDF and in the altered PDF, and compares line by line all the characters. And if there are differences, then it says so. Okay. You see, and this is not out of focus, so now I'm relieved. I think everybody can see what the screenshot says. It says the name of the original file, the migrated file, and the number of lines, which usually is bigger than 3, of course, but this should be an easy example. And it says how many lines are different. In this example, every line is different. And it says the Lebenstein-Distanz, so how many characters are actually different. And there's some algorithm to calculate if there are line irregularities. Because what occurs really often in PDF files, is that there's just one line more in the migrated PDF. This is somewhere maybe in the 5th line or something. And of course, all the rest of the lines which are following are then different. And this really looks bad when I run it with this program. I will show an example for this as well. You see the difference in the line number, the original line and the migrated line. And if the Levenstein distance only has 1, because usually it's only the most common error here is that there's only one space, one empty space in the middle of a word. And then usually you can see the different word in the original and in the migration as well in the table. But here you can't. Well, yes, the character checking tool, it's a beta self-written thing, and it's called the twin tester tool. It's on GitHub. I think I have a link to it in the slides. If not, I can just paste it in the chat box later on. So usually you would see the different word here as well, but as the Levenstein distance is too big, it doesn't display this. So this is how it works. I think I've already said that. To calculate if just a line is shifted, it just looks how many lines are different. Or if I have to explain it in a more correct way. Wait a minute. Yes. It puts out the Levenstein distance for all the lines in the PDF. That means it looks how many lines are different, because maybe there are 2,000 lines, and only one is different because it has somehow shifted, and then the PDF is pretty much alike as the original. But if you wouldn't calculate the distance for all the lines in the PDF, you would think that most of the lines are with errors, but they usually aren't. Of course, the 6th point on this on this slides eats up the most of the time. It can't last a while, a long while if it's a long PDF, and especially if you're not doing this only with 2 PDF, but with a whole folder. Sometimes it just lasts too long. That's why there is a twin tester tool Lite, which leaves out this last step to just due to performance reasons. Here I have, this is not really good in focus, but maybe you can see it, a real-world example, which really was a PDF I had migrated to PDF-A, and there are some issues. You always see which is the line number, how the original line and the migrated line look like, and as most of the lines only take only have one word which is wrong, you can see which word has the error, and usually it's just the space character which is all of a sudden there. I was told this might be due to font issues, that another font is used and this font is just too different and uses a little bit, well, it's put in there differently. And sometimes it's really bad because of the OCR, the full text search, because you can't find the words anymore if they are all of a sudden with a space in between. I have another example to show how it looks like if the lines were shifted. I have a very short PDF. The original has 5 lines and the second one 2. The first line is alike, but then I just put a completely empty line in the second line of the migrated line to show you how the output would look like. You see, well, the Levenstein distance of the full PDF is not too bad. It's just 2. because the second and the fifth line are different. Only two lines are different from each other. But within the lines, everything is different because it was just shifted. So there are two things that are calculated. One step is looking at the differences in each line, and the second one is to look how many lines are different, all in all. I hope this is understandable. Maybe it would be easier to just look at the code, but I doubt it, because looking at code is usually not very easy, at least not for me. Okay. There are still other PDF conversion problems, and I really like this quote from Doug Johnson. He said it in the PDF days last year. PDF files may be broken in so many creative ways. And I copied a slide from another PDF day in 2012 in Basel, and there are some issues with fonts, which are pretty common, I think. When migrating to PDFA, I usually have the biggest issues when there are some special characters. They cannot be displayed anymore, or something like this. As I work in a library for economics, there are sometimes some mathematic things in the working papers, and they are sometimes not displayed in the right way when I convert to PDFA, which is of course bad, because a line has so much meaning when there's mathematical stuff in there, sometimes for economics. I don't know if you can see it really, but I had a really bad PDF which I migrated to PDFA, which was a mess afterwards. For example, a graphic was yellow for some reason, and there were some issues with the font as well, but this issue was fixed. I have used PDF24 for migration, and for some reason this issue was fixed, so I couldn't reproduce the error anymore. Otherwise, I could have shown you some really spooky other differences between the original and the migrated one. And of course, my twin twister tool wouldn't realize that this is yellow now. There are some ideas about developing something automatically to check this visually, but it's not easy to implement, so we haven't done that now. But I will say something on the planned activity slides about that. So this is the first PDFA 2A I've ever run into, and it's openly available. You can find it on the web. There's the URL. You can then copy and paste, and you see that it's really PDFA conformance 2A. This is really fascinating. It's not really, I think it's not valid. Well, I've run it through PDFBox, I think, and PDFBox complained, but well, we will see. At least it's a PDFA 2A. That's really nice. Now you know it too. So there are some planned activities. I've already mentioned it. There should be an automated check on visual equality. I know there's a tool named Matchbox. Of course, it only works with images, so it would be necessary to convert each PDF side by side to an image, and then compare all the pages with each other. This is a workflow I haven't dared to implement yet, because of course PDF usually has more than one page, and then you have to implement the Matchbox tool, and you have to convert each page into some kind of image. And as Matchbox was usually developed to see if with digitization something was digitized twice, I don't know how much in detail would it really realize if something has changed. Maybe it's too not detailed enough for this purpose. I don't know yet, but I know there are other tools that can compare images, and maybe one of them is sensitive enough to be a good tool for this. And I think there had been a workflow like this in New Zealand a few years before, and I think it worked, but it sounds pretty much, well, cumbersome. I haven't done it yet, but it's on my agenda since, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And of course, we are always interested in enhance the PDF preservation planning. This might never end. As you know now, we have a very shallow way to fix PDFs, and we will try, if there is some PDFA tool, of course, they cost money. There's something. We might spend money on that, but maybe there's some way to repair at least a big chunk of our PDFs in a better way, just to be able to sleep better, because the shallow way can't be the end of the workflow. But we are still seeking for the perfect tool to deal with our PDF files. Maybe you know what I'm talking about if you have strange and difficult PDF files as well. So that's it for now. Any questions? I come back to the question with the PDF dictionary. I've looked at our page, this one, and there are some issues described with the PDF dictionary, but I don't think there is some generic explanation what the info dictionary is. So we might just add it. I will add it as a to-do, and then we will do it in the near future. I have not yet embedded the twin tester tool in our own archiving solution because I know there is a possibility to do that. We are actually using Rosetta, not Archivematica, but in the end the question is pretty similar. So I have not tried it yet, but I think there should be a possibility if there is some good, well, you can maybe develop it as a plugin, and if there's a good possibility in Archivematica to have this plugin, I guess there should be the possibility. But I don't know anything about Archivematica, so I don't know it. But I think it should be integrated. Eventually, I will have to do that with our archiving system as well, and afterwards I will know more about this issue. Then I will have done it myself. So that was the Jenny Mitchum question. Are you talking about the information embedded in the PDF, but not in the XMP? I can't get it, Jody. Can you maybe use a few more words? I don't know. I can't get it. Okay, there's a question from Carl about the performance of the last step of the twin tester, which calculates each line of the PDF. This is not really an issue if you are comparing only 2 PDF files, but I have a folder version of this tool as well. And if you are comparing more than 2 PDF files, and they are pretty long, it eats up too much time, at least for my taste. I think with only 2 PDFs, it might be like 5 minutes, but it can easily add up to more than an hour if you have a folder. And that's too long for me to wait, at least in pre-ingest, because of course I'm waiting for the findings. But you can test it. I have it on GitHub. It's openly available. Of course, I have to warn you because I have developed it myself and it still has issues. The next question is from Jörg. There's no question in that. Okay. So the next question, have you encountered a PDF which is digitally signed? Did you have a problem with digital signature? How did you resolve the problem of preservation of authenticity? No, not yet. I have only 1 and 2 PDFs where you can fill in something. and they usually don't cause problems, at least not with JHOVE. So I haven't developed any workflow with digitally signed PDFs or form PDFs yet. I don't know anything about it. And that's really nice. Somebody has pasted a Matchbox URL for everybody. Oh yeah, now we come back to Jodi's question. I can't answer this question. She's asking about the info dictionary. If the PDF header is a good example for the info dictionary. I don't think so, because I think these are two different parts of the PDF. I know I have written something down about this. It's really bad, because maybe it's in another wiki. But I'm really bad at answering questions and searching something simultaneously on my 3 or 4 different wikis, so I really don't know. Maybe we can just add it into the OPF JHOVE issues and error messages page really soon, like hopefully today. I will look at it right after this, but I can't just answer it by heart. And I'm as impatient as Carl, I guess, when waiting for a program to be done. Jörg is asking about JHOVE. JHOVE only validates the outer structure of a PDF file. Are you aware of any developments to change that and validate the inner structures of a PDF as well? This might also explain why our shallow workflow is so successful, because it just repairs the outer structure, not the inner structure. I am not aware of any developments in JHOVE to change that. Maybe somebody of the OPF is, like Carl or Becky. I have only looked at the XML part of the Vera PDF tool yet. So of the rules, I have not tried it out. Is there something to try out yet? I just came back from a holiday, so. Yes, Pete, this is what I mean with the info dictionary, but I guess we have to make a short summary, because as most of the PDF documentation, it's just too wordy. Maybe we can put that in our OPF wiki and have a helpful summary there, so that the people don't have to read so many things, so long text.
So the question about outer structure of a PDF file and validate the inner structures of the PDF file. Jorg, if you could just be a little bit more precise about which of the structures you mean there, I might be able to give a bit more detail. Because again, there's some work on the Vera project to validate at least fonts and color schemes, color profiles, as part of PDFA validation. But given that we'll only be validating the parts of those structures that pertain to PDFA, and once again, PDF validation as opposed to PDFA validation is something we've looked at, but it's really an order of magnitude larger than PDFA validation. Sorry, Joe. Yes, I'll try maybe I'll try and increase my mic gain. That might be better. As I say, there is some plans in the Vera PDF project to validate one or two of the inner structures, such as color spaces or fonts. But then we have looked at PDF validation per se as opposed to PDFA validation. It's almost an order of magnitude more work.
So you always feel invited to add to our page if you have more good PDF examples for JHOVE errors, or if you know anything that we don't know, just tell us, because we are always seeking for the answers. And sometimes we are even seeking for the questions as well. So every question would be useful. You can always come back to us later on. Just send us an email. I'm very interested in broken PDFs. It's sort of a collection.
Well, brilliant. Thank you very much, Yvonne. Yeah, it's been really interesting, and thank you everyone else for attending. If there are no more questions, I think I'll close for today, and we'll circulate the slides afterwards, so you've all got to be.
Cool.
Yep,
Thank you, Becky.
again.
Ciao.